Welcome to Daily English Stories. Every story hides a world. Some inspire, some haunt, some stay forever. Chapter 1. The Unseen Gardener. Aaron was a boy with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. He had little patience for things he didn't understand, and even less for people who didn't seem to matter. In his village, small, dusty, and surrounded by hills, everyone knew everyone. And everyone knew the old man who spent his mornings planting seeds in the empty field by the school. Every day, without fail, the man would walk slowly down the cobbled path with a wooden cane in one hand and a sack of seeds slung over his shoulder. He never spoke much, just greeted people with a nod. He'd kneel, aching bones and all, and press seeds into the dry earth with fingers that trembled but never faltered. To most, he was just the crazy old gardener. Some pitied him, others ignored him, but to Aaron, he was a walking joke. "What's the point?" Aaron would sneer, arms crossed as he stood with his school friends watching from a distance. "Look at the field. Nothing grows. Not even weeds. The man's lost it." His friends laughed. It was easy to mock someone who couldn't defend himself. Easier still when that person seemed blind to reality. One day, Aaron couldn't help himself. He walked up to the old man and asked, "Why do you keep planting these seeds? They won't grow. You'll be gone before anything happens. What's the use?" The man looked up. His eyes, pale and soft, held no anger. Just a quiet stillness. "Someone once planted a tree whose shade I now sit under," he said gently. "Now it's my turn." Aaron scoffed. "That's foolish." But the man didn't argue. He simply smiled, as if hearing something Aaron couldn't, and turned back to the earth. The next morning, and the morning after that, and every morning that followed, the old man returned to the field. He watered when he could, sometimes sang while he worked, humming tunes only he seemed to know. Aaron watched him now and then, not out of respect, but out of disbelief. How could someone give so much of their time, their energy, their belief, without expecting to see the result? In a world where everyone chased results, applause, and visible success, this man seemed content with silence, with hope buried beneath the soil. The villagers whispered, "Poor old soul. He's planting nothing but dreams." And Aaron, not understanding, would laugh along. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind passed through the trees and the stars blinked above, a strange thought would press into his chest. What if the man wasn't mad, but right? He never said it out loud. He never dared. Not yet. Chapter 2. Seasons of Change. The years moved on like the slow march of clouds over Aaron's restless life. He had left the village in search of something bigger, louder, something that would prove his worth. But the world outside was not what he had imagined. Ambition turned bitter when opportunities slipped through his fingers. Friends became strangers, and love, once within reach, faded with time and misunderstanding. Life was not kind. It humbled him in quiet, painful ways. There were nights when Aaron sat alone in rented rooms, staring at the ceiling, wondering what went wrong. There were days when he passed cheerful parks, and for a reason he couldn't name, his chest ached with emptiness. It wasn't the absence of success that haunted him. It was the absence of peace. In those silent moments, his mind drifted to the old man from his childhood, the one who planted seeds in barren land with no promise, no explanation, the one they had mocked, the one Aaron had laughed at too. He remembered the man's face, not angry, not sad, just patient, calm like he knew something the rest of them didn't. Arun had never seen that expression on anyone else since. And now, as his own eyes grew heavier with regrets, he found himself craving that kind of peace, that sense of purpose that didn't need validation. One late summer, weary and seeking rest, Arun returned to the village. He expected it to be the same. Dusty paths, whispering trees, and the old field that never grew anything. But as he neared the place, his steps slowed. He stopped. The field was no longer empty. Where once there had been only dry soil and silence, now stood tall trees swaying gently with the breeze. There were flowering shrubs, shaded benches, and winding stone paths. Children chased butterflies. Elderly villagers sat together in laughter. Birds built nests in branches that had taken years to stretch toward the sky. It was a garden. No, a sanctuary. Alive, breathing. Arun's throat tightened as he walked through the space. It was as if every leaf whispered the old man's quiet message. Something planted with love and patience would always bloom, even if you weren't there to see it. He found a small wooden plaque near a tree's base. Carved into it, simply, planted in silence, grown in time. For all. The old man was gone. No one said where or when, but his presence was everywhere, in the shade, the scent, the stillness. Arun sat on one of the benches, his heart full of things he couldn't put into words. For the first time in years, he wasn't angry or afraid or chasing something. He was still. Just still. And in that stillness, something grew inside him too. Chapter 3. The Harvest of the Heart. The breeze that swept through the village field was no longer the same. It carried laughter now, of children playing under the shade of tall trees, of families picnicking on the grass, of elders sitting on benches, sharing stories with warm smiles and wrinkled hands. The field was no longer barren. It was alive. And so was Arun's understanding. He stood at the edge of the field that had once been the subject of mockery, his own laughter echoing years ago as he watched the old man drop seed after seed into dry soil. He remembered his scorn, the rolling of eyes, the questions he'd never asked out loud. Why waste time? Why bother? What difference would it make? Now, he knew. The old man had long gone, leaving behind no grand farewell, no final speech, no monument in his name. Just this. A garden of peace, of color, of quiet revolution. Trees with thick trunks and branches that stretched like open arms. Flowers in hues Arun never noticed before. And in the center, a wooden sign, weathered and simple. Leave it better than you found it. Those words rooted deep within Arun's chest. He returned to his childhood home, not with the same complaints or cynicism, but with questions. Not for others, but for himself. What could he leave behind? What kind of seeds could he plant? He began quietly, almost unsure at first. A neighbor needed help mending a broken fence. He offered. A boy on the street had no shoes. Arun gave his. A young girl struggled to read. He sat beside her, gently guiding her through every word. He started spending time at the school, reading to children whose parents worked late. He helped the shopkeeper arrange shelves without being asked. He left water outside his home for passers-by, just as the old man once left fruit on stone steps with no note. He found peace not in applause, but in the silence of small moments, in the way someone's face softened after being listened to, in the gratitude found in a nod, a tear, a smile. One day, an old woman approached him after he helped her cross the street. You remind me of someone, she said, eyes narrowed with memory. The man who used to plant trees when no one believed they'd grow. Aaron smiled, heart swelling not with pride, but humility. He taught me something, he said softly, without ever saying a word. The seasons changed again. Autumn brushed gold across the leaves. Children began calling the garden Aaron's field, but he always corrected them. No, not mine. It belongs to everyone now, just as it always did. He didn't want recognition. He only wanted to continue the cycle. And as he sat under the oldest tree one morning, its bark thick, its branches full, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small pouch of seeds. With care, he stood, walked to a bare patch near the path, and bent down. He dug into the earth, not hurried, not forced. One by one, he planted new seeds, not knowing who would see them grow, not caring if anyone would remember his name. Just planting, like the man before him, with faith, with purpose, with heart. Because now Aaron knew. Wisdom wasn't loud. It didn't shout or demand. It whispered in every act of kindness, bloomed in every unnoticed deed, and rooted itself in the hearts it touched. The harvest wasn't of crops alone. It was a harvest of the heart. And Aaron was finally home.